Imagine the soft glow of candlelight flickering across the grand halls of an ancient palace. You walk through the cool stone corridors, each step echoing in the emptiness of time. The scent of fresh incense fills the air, earthy, sweet, and heavy with the weight of history. You hear the faint rustle of silk, the clink of delicate jewelry, and the murmur of voices drifting in from a courtyard where Roman generals and Egyptian royalty cross paths. It's a world unlike any you know. Yet one figure stands out, her presence larger than life. Her name, Cleopatra, is whispered across continents and centuries. Cleopatra VII, the last queen of Egypt, was a woman whose beauty has been immortalized in stories and art. You've probably heard the legends, the stories of her enchanting allure that captivated Julius Caesar, Mark Antony, and even the minds of millions across the world. But here's the truth. The things you've been told, they might not be exactly what you think. You won't make it through this day. Cleopatra's beauty wasn't just in her face, and it certainly wasn't just in her physical form. You know that feeling you get when you see someone who commands the room without even trying? That was Cleopatra. Her beauty wasn't just what you could see. It was how she carried herself, how she spoke, and how she made everyone around her feel as though they were part of her grand plan. Before we dive into all that, though, a gentle nudge. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the journey. It would mean a lot, but no rush. This is a slow, gentle ride, just like Cleopatra's life. Feel free to leave a comment with your location and the current time where you are. It's always nice to know where our journeys begin. Now, let's relax on tonight's ride, drifting back more than 2,000 years to the bustling heart of ancient Alexandria, where the Mediterranean winds blow soft and warm, where the sea sparkles under the golden Egyptian sun, and where Cleopatra first stepped into history, not just as a queen, but as a symbol of power, grace, and, dare I say it, a little bit of mystery. Cleopatra wasn't born into a world of peace. Born in 69 BCE to the Ptolemaic dynasty, which ruled Egypt after Alexander the Great's empire crumbled, she was raised in a time of political chaos. Her father, Ptolemy XII, wasn't exactly a shining star of leadership. He spent much of his reign in debt, relying on Roman aid to keep his throne. When he died, Cleopatra was thrust into power, co-ruling with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. It was hardly a peaceful beginning for a young woman who would come to embody the power of Egypt. Historians still debate whether Cleopatra was truly as beautiful as the legends suggest. Some say she was more charming than stunning, but beauty, of course, is a matter of perception. Was she a beauty by today's standards? Perhaps not. But then again, when you have the charisma to make two of the most powerful men in the world fall for you, it's hard to argue that you're anything less than magnetic. Her beauty was not just skin deep. It was said that Cleopatra's voice was hypnotic, a sound that could lull even the most hardened Roman general into a state of fascination. You could almost hear her now, whispering across the centuries, telling stories of her kingdom and her people. It wasn't just her physical beauty. It was her voice, her ability to command a room, to make everyone feel like they were in the presence of someone who held the world in her hands. And maybe, just maybe, she did. Cleopatra's charm wasn't simply a matter of allure, though. It was her intellect that set her apart from other women of her time. She was a scholar, fluent in several languages, and deeply learned in the ways of politics and diplomacy. She knew how to play the game of power, how to navigate the treacherous waters of Roman politics, how to outwit her enemies, and how to align herself with the right people. Her alliance with Julius Caesar was not born out of love at first sight, though we can't entirely discount the possibility of romance. No, Cleopatra was far too brilliant for that. She saw the potential in Caesar, and Caesar saw the potential in her. Together, they forged a powerful political partnership that would shape the future of both Rome and Egypt. But the drama didn't stop there. After Caesar's assassination, Cleopatra didn't miss a beat. She quickly aligned herself with Mark Antony, a Roman general with ambitions of his own. This partnership, too, would go down in history as one of the most famous love affairs of all time. Still, at its core, it was another strategic political alliance, one that helped Cleopatra maintain her power and secure her throne. Now, here's where things get interesting. You might imagine Cleopatra as a woman who bathed in milk and wore golden crowns. But the truth is, she wasn't above the sometimes gritty realities of royal life. Her reign was filled with political intrigue, backstabbing, and, yes, battles for survival. Cleopatra wasn't just a pretty face. She was a shrewd ruler who knew how to balance power and influence. Of course, that doesn't mean she didn't indulge in the luxury of the time. After all, Cleopatra was the queen of Egypt, and Egypt had plenty of wealth to lavish on its rulers. However, it was the way she utilized her beauty and charm to forge these political alliances that truly distinguished her. A beautiful woman who knew when to use her looks and when to use her brains. Now that's a recipe for a legendary queen. And speaking of her looks, Cleopatra's famous beauty wasn't the product of some mystical elixir. Historians and ancient scholars suggest that she relied on natural, somewhat unorthodox beauty treatments. Some believe she used honey and olive oil as moisturizers, while others say she was fond of bathing in a mixture of rose water and wine. The ancient world had its own set of beauty secrets, but Cleopatra was no stranger to embracing them. Though her beauty may have been the subject of endless admiration, it was her mind and her ambition that left an indelible mark on the world. As we move on to the next section, imagine yourself sitting by a pool in ancient Alexandria, watching the light play across the water, the sounds of the bustling city in the distance. Cleopatra, a queen of beauty and brains, walks past. She doesn't simply catch your eye. She makes you feel as though you're a part of her grand vision. You can't help but wonder how such a woman could have ever faded from history. But here we are, hundreds of years later, still talking about her. You feel yourself drifting deeper into the world of ancient Egypt, its mysteries, its beauty, its politics. Cleopatra may have been many things, but above all, she was a ruler who understood the art of making an impression. Her beauty, intellect, and political savvy combined in such a way that no one could resist her. As you close your eyes, imagining this world, you can almost hear her soft voice calling to you across the ages, drawing you deeper into her story. And so, with a gentle sigh, you let go of the world around you. The ancient world waits for you, and Cleopatra is ready to tell you more. As you drift deeper into the quiet, warm waters of ancient Alexandria, the world around you fades into a gentle hum, like a lullaby sung by the waves themselves. Cleopatra's Egypt, with its golden sands and bustling markets, seems far away from our modern world. But the weight of history still lingers here, between the cracks of the past and the present. In those long, hot afternoons by the Nile, Cleopatra would have walked through the grand halls of her palace, the air heavy with incense and the smell of freshly baked bread. Egypt, despite its grandeur, was a land of contrasts. Fertile and rich, but also prone to political instability. Cleopatra's reign was no exception. Though she is often remembered as a beauty who seduced Roman leaders, her true genius lay in her ability to navigate the political landscape of her time. As you stroll through her world, imagine the intricate web she wove, weaving alliances and breaking enemies with the same skill she might use to arrange the folds of her royal garments. It wasn't just her beauty that made her unforgettable. It was her political savvy. Cleopatra, despite being a woman in a world dominated by men, was never afraid to make bold decisions, take risks, and use the tools at her disposal. Whether those tools were her charm, her intellect, or the immense wealth of Egypt. The idea that Cleopatra was simply a seductive figure for Caesar and Antony is far too simplistic. She was a ruler, not a sidekick. When Julius Caesar first met Cleopatra, she wasn't exactly in the most advantageous position. Egypt was embroiled in a civil war, and Cleopatra was engaged in a power struggle with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. Her kingdom was fragile and her position precarious. But Cleopatra was clever. She knew that the key to her survival and to securing her throne was aligning herself with the right people. That person at the time was Caesar. Historians still debate the true nature of Cleopatra and Caesar's relationship. Was it purely political? Did they fall in love, as some of the ancient writers suggest? Or was Cleopatra simply a shrewd ruler, using her charm to ensure her survival? Perhaps it was a little of both. What is clear is that Cleopatra didn't just fall into Caesar's arms. She placed herself there, carefully, with purpose. After all, you don't become the ruler of one of the most powerful civilizations in the world by accident. Cleopatra understood how to leverage her beauty, intelligence, and insight into Roman politics to secure her place in history. And make no mistake, she did not intend to be a passive participant in the drama of her time. Cleopatra was the lead actress in her own story, and she played her role to perfection. In the coming months, Caesar would help her defeat her brother and solidify her position as queen. As you sit there, imagining Cleopatra walking by the Nile, you feel the weight of her triumph. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick. But with Caesar's support, she achieved what few women in her time could. She became the undisputed ruler of Egypt. Now, before we get too caught up in the love stories and the drama of Roman generals, let's talk about Cleopatra's charm and her connection to the greater world of culture and art. The story of Cleopatra's beauty has been told and retold for centuries, but her true power was in how she used every asset at her disposal. Yes, she was undeniably beautiful by ancient standards, though it's hard to pinpoint exactly what beauty meant in ancient Egypt. Was it her sharp jawline, her dark eyes, or the grace with which she carried herself? Her beauty was legendary, but it was her ability to communicate, to weave her personality into every conversation, that made her unforgettable. Cleopatra had an impressive education. She was known to speak several languages. Some say she spoke 9, and was deeply versed in philosophy, mathematics, and the arts. Her intellect alone would have been enough to set her apart from other rulers of her time, but her beauty added another layer of mystique. In the context of ancient Egypt, where physical appearance was often associated with divine favor, Cleopatra's beauty was not just a personal attribute, but a symbol of her sacred right to rule. Cleopatra was not just a ruler. She was an icon of culture, a symbol of Egypt's power and grandeur. It's fascinating to consider how Cleopatra's beauty has been portrayed throughout the ages. Ancient coins from her reign depict her with a sharp, commanding nose, unusual for the flattering portraits of women in the ancient world. Some argue that these coins, depicting Cleopatra with a somewhat masculine appearance, were intended to emphasize her royal power rather than her physical beauty. The portrayal of Cleopatra's beauty on these coins is a testament to the political climate of her time, where her power and authority were more important than her physical attractiveness. Perhaps Cleopatra, knowing that her appearance would be scrutinized for generations, used her image as a statement of strength. As you imagine Cleopatra's royal portraits hanging in the halls of her palace, it becomes clear. Her beauty wasn't just about her looks. It was about the message she sent. Every element of her appearance, from her regal attire to her perfectly styled hair, was carefully curated to portray an image of absolute power. And while the coins may have shown her in a somewhat unflattering light, they also captured her confidence, her ability to command attention. Remember, however, that Cleopatra's beauty was never the sole reason for her success. To put it simply, her physical charm was just one part of the equation. The real magic occurred when Cleopatra utilized her mind, voice, and alliances to shape the fate of Egypt. She was more than just a pretty face. Cleopatra was a master strategist, and although she was born into luxury, she certainly didn't sit back and wait for life to unfold. At some point in her reign, Cleopatra must have known that her power lay not only in her beauty but also in her ability to bring the right people into her fold. Julius Caesar was just the beginning. Mark Antony, a Roman general, was her next great ally. Like Caesar, Antony was charmed by Cleopatra's intellect and charisma. But Cleopatra didn't just win him over with her beauty. She played her cards carefully, aligning herself with him at a time when Rome was in turmoil. Antony, like Caesar, saw Cleopatra as a powerful ally, someone who could help him secure his position in Rome. Together, Cleopatra and Antony created an alliance that would change the course of history. Cleopatra's love life, often portrayed as passionate and tragic, was also deeply intertwined with her ambition. She understood that her relationships were not merely personal. They were political. It was her ability to combine both aspects, personal connection and political strategy, that made her such a formidable ruler. Now, imagine yourself once again in the royal halls of Cleopatra's palace, surrounded by the sounds of Egypt, the soft murmur of the Nile, the rustling of palm trees, and the whispers of politics in the air. Cleopatra stands before you, a woman of immense power and intellect. You can see the way her eyes twinkle with sharpness, with purpose, as she speaks. You can almost hear her voice, low and inviting, telling you the secrets of her kingdom. The soft rustle of the papyrus scrolls, the rich, sun-drenched air, and the hum of the Nile's gentle current. The world Cleopatra ruled was one of contradictions. It was a world where grandeur and danger coexisted, where luxury and intrigue mingled like the strong perfumes worn by the queen herself. Cleopatra, the final Ptolemaic ruler of Egypt, was not simply born into power. She fought, she charmed, and she schemed. But beyond all the political drama, beyond her alliances with the most powerful men in the Roman world, there was a queen who ruled not just with the might of her armies, but with the cunning of a fox. Her gender, in a world dominated by men, added another layer of complexity to her rule. Cleopatra, a queen of unparalleled strategic acumen, understood that power wasn't just about commanding men or rallying soldiers. It was about control of the narrative, control of perception, and control of your image. The Queen of Egypt, more than anyone, grasped this. Her art was in making people believe she was indispensable, even as she remained an enigma wrapped in the mystery of her charm and intellect. Cleopatra didn't just play the political game. She was the lead actress on a grand stage, with Rome and Egypt as her audience. Her understanding of the importance of public image was one of the most fascinating aspects of her reign. She wasn't just a ruler in the traditional sense. She was a master of intrigue, using the propaganda of her time to her advantage and creating a persona that has endured for centuries. Think about the coins again. They weren't just pieces of currency. They were Cleopatra's propaganda tool. Every coin struck during her reign was a carefully crafted message. Her image on the coins showed her as a strong, dignified ruler, with her sharp features and commanding presence. This wasn't a woman to be trifled with. This was a queen who knew precisely how to use her image to consolidate her power. Her public persona was as much a part of her strategy as her relationships with Caesar and Antony. She could remain mysterious, always leaving the world wondering what was real and what was carefully crafted. Imagine her as a master of the art of intrigue, forever keeping those around her just a little off balance. When people didn't know what to expect from her, they were more likely to give her the benefit of the doubt. And that, in turn, gave her room to maneuver, to play the game in ways others could not. But Cleopatra wasn't just playing the game with her enemies. She was also playing it with her people. Egypt was a land rich in tradition, deeply rooted in its ancient ways, and yet Cleopatra was constantly rewriting the rules, adjusting her image to fit the needs of her country and her reign. She was a queen, yes, but she was also a symbol, and symbols are malleable. Cleopatra, more than anyone else, understood the delicate balance between being a ruler and being an icon. Her reign left an indelible mark on Egypt's culture and traditions, shaping them in ways that are still evident today. As you sit by the edge of the Nile, watching the slow flow of water under the starry sky, you can almost feel the weight of Cleopatra's presence. You know she is a queen who has spent years crafting her image, cultivating relationships, and securing her position not just as a ruler, but as a symbol of Egypt itself. It was said that Cleopatra could charm anyone with her voice. Something about the way she spoke, the way her words seemed to echo across the centuries, made people feel as if they were in the presence of something divine. Her image and persona continue to inspire and intrigue us to this day. Cleopatra's ability to captivate people wasn't just a matter of her voice or her beauty. It was the way she made others feel. Her charm was subtle, like the scent of jasmine in the air. It didn't overwhelm, but it lingered, leaving its mark on everyone who encountered her. The way she made Julius Caesar, Mark Antony, and countless others feel was her secret weapon. And it wasn't just the men she won over, it was her ability to inspire loyalty in those around her, to surround herself with a circle of trusted allies who believed in her vision for Egypt. There's an old saying that Cleopatra didn't seduce her lovers, she seduced the world. And in many ways, this is true. Her reign was a time of great political upheaval, and yet Cleopatra managed to preserve Egypt's independence by aligning herself with the right people at the right time. It wasn't always smooth sailing, of course. She had her share of enemies, from her brother Ptolemy XIII to the Roman Senate, who looked upon her with suspicion. But she outsmarted them all, using her beauty, her wit, and her political acumen to keep Egypt at the center of the world stage. Historians still debate whether Cleopatra genuinely believed in the political philosophies she espoused, or whether she was merely a pragmatist who knew how to adapt to the winds of power. Some say she was deeply devoted to Egyptian religion and culture, while others suggest she was more of a political opportunist who exploited Egypt's traditions to maintain control. The truth, like much of her life, is likely somewhere in between. Cleopatra was a product of her time, a queen who knew that to survive in a world dominated by men, she had to be smarter, savvier, and more ruthless than anyone else. At the heart of Cleopatra's legacy lies her ability to maintain control of Egypt in the face of Roman dominance. She wasn't just a lover of Roman generals. She was a master strategist, always thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead. She knew how to use the resources at her disposal, whether those resources were her alliances with Caesar and Antony or the vast wealth of Egypt's economy. Cleopatra was the kind of ruler who knew how to play the long game, understanding that power wasn't about brute force. It was about perception, manipulation, and the subtle art of persuasion. Imagine, if you will, the quiet moments when Cleopatra sat in her royal chambers, reflecting on the world outside. Perhaps she gazed out over the sprawling city of Alexandria, watching the comings and goings of merchants, soldiers, and diplomats. It was in these moments, away from the public eye, that Cleopatra must have crafted her most important decisions. She wasn't just making choices for herself. She was making choices for the future of her country, for the future of Egypt itself. And yet, despite all her wisdom, her intelligence, and her strategic mind, Cleopatra's reign would eventually come to an end. Rome, as powerful as it was, could not be ignored forever. Ultimately, Cleopatra's story is one of ambition, love, and loss. She died, as we know, in 30 BCE, and Egypt was absorbed into the Roman Empire. But even in death, Cleopatra's legacy endured. She remains one of the most iconic figures in history, her name synonymous with beauty, power, and mystery. As you let the soft sounds of the Nile lull you into a peaceful slumber, you realize that Cleopatra's life, with all its complexities and contradictions, is a story that will never truly end. She remains with us, not just in the history books, but in the very fabric of our imagination. Cleopatra, the queen who charmed the world, still whispers to us from the pages of time. The quiet hum of the evening wraps itself around you as you sit by the ancient Nile. The sky above is a blanket of velvet stars, the air still and warm, carrying with it the whispers of a time long past. Cleopatra's story continues to unfold before you, a tale of a queen whose name has transcended centuries, leaving behind a legacy not just of beauty, but of intellect, politics, and the art of survival. But as you settle deeper into the comforting rhythm of history, it's time to uncover another side of Cleopatra's reign, her relationship with Egypt itself, the land she ruled and loved. Cleopatra was not just the queen of Egypt. She was its symbol. The land of the pyramids, the Sphinx, and the ever-flowing Nile had a profound spiritual and cultural significance that Cleopatra fully understood. She wasn't simply concerned with politics. She was concerned with preserving Egypt's identity in a world that was rapidly changing. Rome, with its military might and vast empire, loomed ever larger. But Cleopatra, with her sharp mind and keen instincts, knew that to maintain Egypt's independence, she had to keep the essence of Egypt alive. She had to make Egypt seem indispensable, a kingdom whose history and culture were so intertwined with her image that it would be impossible to separate the two. The idea of Egypt, as both a place and a people, is forever tied to Cleopatra. She was the last pharaoh, and her reign was a bridge between the ancient world of the pyramids and the looming dominance of Rome. And while many see Cleopatra through the lens of her relationships with Caesar and Antony, it's worth noting that she never stopped being a queen of Egypt. She may have used Rome to secure her position, but Egypt was always her first love, the land she fought for until the very end. In Cleopatra's time, Egypt was an ancient civilization with a rich, storied past. It was a land of temples, of gods, and of pharaohs who were believed to be divine themselves. Cleopatra understood the importance of these traditions, and she carefully constructed her public image as a continuation of Egypt's glorious past. She didn't just wear the crown of Egypt, she wore the mantle of its ancient rulers. She often portrayed herself as the goddess Isis, a revered figure in Egyptian mythology. Cleopatra's image was more than just a reflection of her own identity. It was a reflection of Egypt itself, and she understood that the two could never be separated. And then, there was Alexandria, the city that Cleopatra helped shape into one of the most famous and culturally rich cities in the ancient world. Alexandria was not just a city she ruled, but a town in which she actively participated. It was a hub of knowledge, intellectual pursuit, and cosmopolitan luxury. It was the city where the great library of Alexandria stood, a beacon of knowledge that attracted scholars from all corners of the known world. Cleopatra herself was known to be an intellectual, and she surrounded herself with the brightest minds of her time. She didn't just rule Egypt, she engaged with it, fostering an environment where learning and culture could thrive. Alexandria, under Cleopatra, became a hub of intellectual exchange, a place where ideas flowed as freely as the Nile itself. Despite her deep love for Egypt, Cleopatra was never blind to the forces that were changing the world around her. The rise of Rome, the relentless march of Roman power, was something Cleopatra could not ignore. Rome was a juggernaut, and for Cleopatra to maintain her throne and her country's autonomy, she had to form alliances with the most powerful Romans. She wasn't afraid to make those alliances. She understood that in the game of politics, there were no permanent friends, only permanent interests. Her strategic alliances with powerful Romans like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony were a testament to her political acumen and her determination to protect Egypt. One of Cleopatra's most extraordinary talents was her ability to navigate the delicate balance between maintaining Egypt's independence and securing Roman support. She employed her charm, intellect, and beauty to woo Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony, forging alliances that would ensure her reign. However, she also knew that she had to preserve Egypt's cultural and spiritual identity, even as she aligned herself with the Romans. And yet, there's an interesting paradox at the heart of Cleopatra's story. Although she was an astute and capable ruler, a woman who could command armies, form alliances, and outwit her rivals, Cleopatra was also a product of her time. Despite her beauty and intellect, the world she lived in was still one that viewed women with suspicion. A woman as powerful as Cleopatra, leading a kingdom as significant as Egypt, was an anomaly in a world where women were often confined to the shadows of men. Cleopatra, however, defied these limitations, becoming not just a queen, but an enduring symbol of feminine power and influence. Her courage to defy societal norms and rise to power is truly inspiring. Historians still debate the reasons behind Cleopatra's downfall. Some say it was the changing tides of Roman politics, with the rise of Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus, that sealed her fate. Others suggest that it was her relationship with Mark Antony that doomed her, as Antony's fortunes in Rome faltered. Whatever the cause, Cleopatra's reign came to an end in 30 BCE when, after Antony's defeat at the Battle of Actium, she chose to end her life rather than live as a prisoner of Rome. But despite her death, Cleopatra's legacy lives on. She is remembered not just for her beauty or her relationships with powerful men, but for the way she shaped the course of history. Cleopatra was a woman who understood the power of perception, the power of politics, and the power of the land she ruled. She was a woman who fought for Egypt's survival, and in doing so, became a symbol of strength, intelligence, and resilience. Her death, a tragic end to a life of struggle and triumph, only served to cement her place in history. As you sit there, feeling the cool breeze of the Nile brush your skin, you realize that Cleopatra was more than just a historical figure. She was a force, a woman who defied the odds and left her mark on the world. Her beauty, yes, was legendary, but it was her mind, her ability to command the room, and her political savvy that made her a true queen. The waters of the Nile seemed to stretch out before you, timeless and unchanging, much like the legacy of Cleopatra herself. The Queen of Egypt, whose story will forever be woven into the fabric of history, still holds a place in our imaginations. And as you listen to the gentle ripples of the river, you understand why Cleopatra's name will never be forgotten. The night grows deeper, and the stars above the Nile seem to shimmer even more brightly now, their pale light casting soft shadows on the ancient stone of Alexandria. Cleopatra's Egypt feels closer now, like a whispered secret of the past. Yet, despite the passage of time, the legacy of Cleopatra continues to pull at the fabric of our imaginations. As you rest in this quiet moment, it's clear that Cleopatra's story is one not just of politics or romance, but of profound cultural shifts, an intersection of ancient Egypt, the burgeoning power of Rome, and the indomitable will of one woman who shaped the course of history. Cleopatra, in all her beauty and intellect, wasn't merely a figure of the ancient world. She was also a product of it. She was born into the final stages of Egypt's Ptolemaic dynasty, a dynasty that had already passed its golden age. The Ptolemies, originally Greek, had come to power after Alexander the Great's death, with his general Ptolemy Isoter taking control of Egypt. Over the years, the once mighty dynasty had seen its fair share of internal conflict, instability, and even assassination. Cleopatra herself was no stranger to the treacherous waters of royal life, constantly maneuvering through plots and betrayals to maintain her throne. As the last of the Ptolemaic rulers, Cleopatra knew that her kingdom was slipping further from its once great status. Egypt was a powerful, ancient land, but by the time Cleopatra ascended to the throne, Rome was already casting its long shadow over the Mediterranean. The Romans had already conquered vast territories, and their empire was growing stronger by the day. Egypt, rich in culture and resources, was a valuable prize, but it was also vulnerable. Cleopatra's understanding of the geopolitical landscape was unparalleled. She was not a naive princess relying on her royal blood for success. She knew that to prevent Egypt from becoming just another Roman province, she had to outsmart, outlast, and outmaneuver the powerful men around her. Her alliances with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony were not mere romantic entanglements. They were strategic moves in a game of political survival. But Cleopatra wasn't just playing the political game. She was rewriting it, using her beauty, intellect, and cunning to craft a new path for herself and her kingdom. Cleopatra's role in her relationship with Caesar and Antony has often been romanticized. She is usually remembered as the enchanting woman who seduced two of the most powerful men in the Roman world. But the truth is, Cleopatra was far more than a lover. She was a diplomat, a queen, and a visionary. Her relationship with Caesar, which began with their meeting in 48 BCE, was not just personal, it was political. Cleopatra saw in Caesar a powerful ally, someone who could help her secure her throne and restore Egypt to its former glory. In return, Caesar saw in Cleopatra a sharp mind, a woman who could be a valuable asset in his quest for power. Their union was a political alliance forged in the crucible of ambition, but it also had personal undertones. The two were said to have spent considerable time together in Rome, where Cleopatra became a central figure in the Roman elite. She was not simply Caesar's lover. She was a guest of honor, a woman who captured the attention of the Roman people. Despite their significant age difference, Cleopatra and Caesar were a formidable pair, one that left a lasting mark on both Rome and Egypt. Their relationship, however, wasn't without its challenges. Caesar's assassination in 44 BCE marked the beginning of the end for Cleopatra's reign. The political landscape in Rome shifted dramatically, and with Caesar's death, Cleopatra found herself at a crossroads. She could have retreated into the background, faded into the annals of history. But Cleopatra was no ordinary queen. She knew that to maintain her power and Egypt's independence, she had to adapt. So, she turned to the following influential Roman figure, Mark Antony. Mark Antony, like Caesar, was a man of ambition. He was one of the leading figures in Rome after Caesar's death. And like Caesar, he too needed allies to solidify his position. Cleopatra saw in Antony another opportunity, another chance to maintain Egypt's sovereignty and secure her position as queen. Their alliance, both political and personal, was one of the most famous in history. Together, they forged a bond that threatened the power of Rome's Senate and brought them both into conflict with Octavian, Caesar's adopted son. But the story of Cleopatra and Antony is more than just a tale of love and politics. It's also a reflection of Cleopatra's ability to adapt to the shifting tides of history. Unlike many rulers, who rely solely on their military might, Cleopatra understood the importance of alliances. She knew that to survive, she had to play the long game, and she played it with unmatched skill. At the same time, Cleopatra never lost sight of Egypt's needs. She wasn't merely a puppet of Roman ambition. She was still Egypt's queen, and she was determined to protect her country's independence. Cleopatra's diplomacy played a crucial role in her success. She knew when to fight and when to compromise, when to charm and when to assert her demands. She balanced the delicate relationship between Rome and Egypt with remarkable precision, ensuring that Egypt remained a significant player on the world stage. Her diplomatic skills and her ability to balance the relationship between Rome and Egypt were key to her success. But as with all things in history, Cleopatra's careful balance eventually tipped. The Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, in which Octavian's fleet defeated Antony and Cleopatra's forces, marked the end of their dream. After their defeat, Cleopatra and Antony returned to Alexandria, where they faced the inevitable. As Rome's power grew, Egypt's influence waned. Cleopatra, realizing that her reign was over, chose to end her life in 30 BCE, in the embrace of her beloved Egypt. Historians still speculate about the actual cause of Cleopatra's death. Was it suicide? Did she use a poisonous asp, as the legend suggests? Or did she die of natural causes? No one knows for sure. What is clear is that Cleopatra's death marked the end of an era, the end of Egypt's independence, and the beginning of its absorption into the Roman Empire. Egypt, once a proud and powerful civilization, would never again hold the same place in the world. As you sit by the still waters of the Nile, the soft murmur of the current a reminder of time's passing, you realize that Cleopatra's life is a story of contrasts. She was a queen who ruled with grace, intellect, and charm. Yet she was also a woman caught in the tides of political forces beyond her control. She was a lover, a mother, and a ruler. A woman who understood that power was not just about what you could hold in your hand, but what you could have in the hearts of those around you. The night continues to unfold, and the stars above shimmer with the echoes of Cleopatra's legacy. A queen who once stood at the crossroads of East and West, whose beauty, intelligence, and power shaped the course of history. Her name, her story, and her kingdom will live on forever. Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt, remains an icon, an enigma whose memory will forever be woven into the fabric of the ancient world. The night deepens further, and the Nile's ripples seem to echo a song from a forgotten time, carrying with it the stories of Egypt, stories of queens, kings, and empires lost to the sweep of history. As the gentle breeze moves through the papyrus reeds, you find yourself floating back into Cleopatra's world. Both triumphs and tribulations marked her reign. Yet, it is the complexity of her rule and the intricate relationships she navigated that continue to captivate us to this very day. Cleopatra's world was a world of dramatic contrasts, where the old and new clashed in every corner. Egypt, an ancient land with traditions that spanned thousands of years, stood at the crossroads of the Mediterranean world. To the west, the expanding Roman Empire stretched its influence further, and to the east, Persia, once a rival of Greece, continued to cast its long shadow. Egypt itself was rich in resources, gold, grain, and papyrus, but its future was uncertain. The fragile balance between independence and subjugation hung like a veil over the kingdom, and Cleopatra, as queen, understood the delicate nature of her position. What sets Cleopatra apart, in the annals of history, is not just her political acumen or her stunning beauty. It is the fact that she didn't merely adapt to her changing world. She shaped it. Where others may have buckled under the pressure of Roman dominance, Cleopatra saw opportunity. Her relationships with Caesar and Mark Antony were not born out of simple love affairs, but rather political alliances carefully calculated to preserve Egypt's autonomy. She knew that in a world dominated by Rome, she had to use every tool at her disposal, from her intellect to her allure, to secure her place. But let's not romanticize her position too much. Cleopatra wasn't just sitting pretty, waiting for a Roman general to come to her rescue. She was in a fight for her life. Her kingdom was embroiled in internal strife, and her rule was far from secure. Even after she secured the throne through alliances and wars, she was not free from threats. Egypt had been torn by civil strife long before her reign, and Cleopatra had to constantly juggle internal factions that saw her rule as both legitimate and illegitimate. At times, Cleopatra's reign felt like the weight of the ancient world was pressing down on her shoulders. The Ptolemaic dynasty, while descended from Alexander the Great's generals, was still a foreign dynasty to Egypt. Many Egyptians viewed their Greek rulers with suspicion, and Cleopatra, being the last of the Ptolemies, had to walk a fine line between embracing her Greek heritage and establishing herself as a true Egyptian ruler. Her ability to merge these two identities, Greek and Egyptian, was, in part, what made her so unique. She positioned herself as the reincarnation of Isis, the great Egyptian goddess of magic and motherhood, ensuring that her power would be rooted not only in politics but also in the deep spiritual and cultural fabric of Egypt. This blending of identities extended to her appearance as well. Cleopatra's depictions on coins, statues, and in literature were part of her carefully curated image. Far from the lavish, idealized representations that we might expect from such a powerful queen, Cleopatra's appearance was more functional. She was often shown with a sharp, distinctive nose, a feature that might be considered less than flattering by modern beauty standards, but one that served to emphasize her royal and powerful nature. Many historians believe that these depictions weren't accidental. They were crafted to send a message about her strength as a ruler, not simply her physical allure. But it wasn't only her image that Cleopatra carefully controlled. She also had an acute understanding of the power of symbolism. When she met Julius Caesar in 48 BCE, she famously had herself smuggled into his presence on a carpet. It was an audacious move, one that played on the image of Cleopatra as someone who was both clever and resourceful. It wasn't just a physical entrance. It was a statement of her wit and political ingenuity. Caesar, who was taken aback by her cleverness and charm, was instantly captivated. But again, it wasn't just her beauty. It was her ability to communicate and manipulate the situation to her advantage. Their meeting marked the beginning of a political alliance that would shape the future of Egypt. The two spent time together in Rome, where Cleopatra was honored as a queen rather than a mere concubine. She was depicted as an influential figure, fully engaged in the politics of the day. She wasn't just a backdrop to Caesar's ambitions. She was a key player in the unfolding drama of Rome's rise to dominance. Her presence in Rome marked a turning point in her political strategy, as she leveraged the power of association to align herself with one of the most iconic figures in Roman history. But Cleopatra's reign wasn't just about the grand spectacle of alliances and power struggles. It was also about the people she ruled. Cleopatra understood the importance of her subjects, both the elite and the ordinary people, and she worked tirelessly to maintain Egypt's economy and prosperity. She supported the arts and intellectual pursuits, and Alexandria, her capital, became a center for learning and culture. The Great Library of Alexandria, a hub of knowledge in the ancient world, flourished during her reign, attracting scholars from all corners of the Mediterranean. Cleopatra herself was known to be highly educated, fluent in several languages, and deeply interested in philosophy, mathematics, and science. But even as Cleopatra cultivated a thriving cultural environment, she was also a shrewd politician. She knew that Egypt's wealth, both in resources and intellect, was its key to survival. She worked tirelessly to secure Egypt's trade routes, to maintain its agricultural output, and to ensure that Egypt remained a key player in the Mediterranean world. And when her reign faced the threat of Roman conquest, she did not sit idly by. She aligned herself with the powerful forces in Rome, securing her place in history through her relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. Still, despite her strategic genius, Cleopatra was not immune to the forces of fate. The Battle of Actium, a naval battle in 31 BCE, marked the turning point in her story. Her forces, allied with Antony's, were defeated by the fleet of Octavian, Caesar's adopted son. After their defeat, Cleopatra and Antony retreated to Alexandria, where, in the end, they both chose to end their lives. The circumstances of their deaths remain a matter of debate. Did they die by suicide, or were they killed? What is clear, however, is that their defeat marked the end of Egypt's independence and the rise of Rome as the dominant power in the Mediterranean. Cleopatra's death, however, did not mark the end of her legacy. Her name, her story, and her place in history have lived on. For centuries, Cleopatra has been a symbol of power, beauty, and intrigue. Her reign, though brief, left a lasting impression on the world. Today, Cleopatra's name is synonymous with charisma, political savvy, and the ability to control one's fate in a world that seemed to work against her. As you continue to sit by the Nile, the soft sounds of the river and the quiet rustle of reeds offer a gentle soundtrack to the end of your journey, and you realize that Cleopatra's story, like the river, flows endlessly. Though the details of her life may be lost to time, her legacy, shaped by both her triumphs and her failures, continues to echo through the centuries. Cleopatra, a queen who ruled with grace, intellect, and ambition, will always be remembered as one of history's most remarkable figures. The world she created may have faded into the past, but the impact she had on the course of history will live on forever. As the night unfolds further, the Nile continues to whisper its ancient secrets to you. The stories of Cleopatra's reign blend seamlessly with the soft sounds of the river's flow, each ripple carrying with it a piece of her legacy. Yet, as we linger here in the quiet, it's time to explore a deeper facet of Cleopatra's character, her vision for Egypt, her ambitions, and how she used everything at her disposal to secure her kingdom's future. Her story is not just one of beauty and romance, but of an unwavering drive to protect her people and her land. Cleopatra was not a passive figure in her time. She was a force to be reckoned with. From the moment she ascended to the throne, she understood the challenges before her. Egypt, though rich in resources, had been weakened by years of internal strife. The Ptolemaic dynasty, while once a symbol of power, was crumbling under the weight of Roman influence. Cleopatra, as a young queen, faced threats not only from Rome but also from her own family. Her early reign was marked by conflict, as her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, sought to undermine her authority. Cleopatra's response to these challenges was not simply to fight with armies or to rely on force. No, Cleopatra knew that the key to maintaining her power lay in her ability to outthink her opponents. She was a master of political strategy, capable of navigating the complex web of alliances, betrayals, and shifting allegiances that defined the Mediterranean world. Her relationship with Julius Caesar is often portrayed as a passionate love affair, but in reality, it was a pragmatic alliance that helped her regain control of Egypt. Caesar's support allowed her to defeat her brother's forces, solidifying her position as Egypt's sole ruler. She also leveraged her knowledge of the Roman political system to her advantage, aligning herself with influential figures and utilizing her influence to safeguard Egypt's interests. And it wasn't just Rome that Cleopatra had to contend with. She also had to manage Egypt's complex internal politics, balancing the interests of the powerful priesthoods, the military elite, and the ruling class. Her relationship with the Egyptian priests in particular was vital to her rule. Egypt's religious traditions were deeply ingrained in its culture, and Cleopatra knew that to maintain her power, she had to align herself with the religious authorities of the time. She was not just a political leader but also a religious figure, often portraying herself as the living goddess Isis, a symbol of divine kingship and protector of Egypt. This was a strategic move aimed at gaining the support of both the religious establishment and the general public. Historians still debate the extent to which Cleopatra believed in the Egyptian gods or if she used religion purely as a political tool. Some argue that she was genuinely devoted to Egypt's ancient traditions, while others believe that she was a pragmatic ruler who utilized religion to consolidate her power. What is clear, however, is that Cleopatra knew how to blend Egypt's ancient traditions with the changing political realities of her time. She was able to present herself as both the traditional queen of Egypt and a modern ruler, adept at navigating the shifting tides of the Mediterranean world. Her relationship with Mark Antony, though often romanticized, was similarly a political alliance. Antony, a key figure in Rome's transition from the Republic to the Empire, was a man with ambitious goals. Like Caesar, Antony saw in Cleopatra not just a lover but a valuable ally. Together, they sought to challenge the rising power of Octavian, Caesar's adopted son. The alliance between Cleopatra and Antony was powerful, and their combined forces posed a serious threat to Octavian's rule. But as we know, the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE sealed their fate. Octavian's fleet decisively defeated Cleopatra and Antony's forces. In the aftermath, Cleopatra found herself in a losing position, her kingdom in peril. The defeat marked the end of her dreams of a united East and West. But Cleopatra was not one to go down without a fight. She and Antony retreated to Alexandria, where they faced the inevitable collapse of their alliance and their reign. Cleopatra's death in 30 BCE, following Antony's suicide, was the final chapter in her reign. Historians still speculate about the circumstances surrounding her death. The popular legend holds that she chose to die by the bite of an asp, an ancient symbol of Egypt's royal power. However, some historians argue that she may have died from poisoning, or that her death was a result of the overwhelming grief after Antony's loss. Whatever the cause, her death marked the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty and the absorption of Egypt into the Roman Empire. The last pharaoh of Egypt had fallen, and Egypt's independence was lost forever. Her death also marked the end of an era in Egyptian history, as Egypt transitioned from a kingdom to a province of the Roman Empire. But Cleopatra's legacy did not die with her. Her name lived on, not only in the history books but also in the minds of the people. Her beauty, her intellect, and her political savvy became the stuff of legend. Shakespeare, the bard himself, would later immortalize her in his play Antony and Cleopatra, casting her as a tragic heroine torn between love and duty. Her story, with its mixture of romance, political intrigue, and tragedy, has captivated writers, historians, and artists for centuries. And Cleopatra, the queen who once stood at the crossroads of East and West, continues to captivate us today. Her image, immortalized in coins and statues, continues to evoke the mystery and allure of ancient Egypt. She has become, in many ways, a symbol of feminine power, a woman who defied the limitations of her time to become one of the most iconic figures in history. But Cleopatra was more than just a symbol. She was a woman who understood the weight of her responsibilities, the complexity of her world, and the power of perception. Her reign, though marked by struggles and challenges, was a testament to her resilience and her ability to navigate a world that often seemed beyond her control. Cleopatra was not just a ruler. She was a survivor, a woman who knew that in the world of politics, nothing was specific except the need to adapt and survive. As you reflect on her story, you can almost feel Cleopatra's presence, like a whisper in the air, urging you to remember the complexity of her character. She was not a perfect ruler, nor was she a passive figure in history. She was a woman who fought for Egypt's survival, who shaped her destiny, and whose legacy continues to inspire and intrigue us. And now, as you sit on the banks of the Nile, the moonlight shimmering across the water, you realize that Cleopatra's story, like the river itself, will never truly fade. It will always flow, endlessly, through the hearts and minds of those who seek to understand the complexities of history, power, and legacy. The Nile stretches endlessly before you, a quiet, eternal witness to the passing of time. The gentle flow of the water mirrors the ebb and flow of history, and in this moment, you can't help but think about Cleopatra, the woman who once stood at the heart of it all. As you sit by the riverbank, a soft wind carries the whispers of her story, a tale that weaves together ambition, power, love, and loss. It is a story that transcends time, and in the stillness of the night, you can almost hear Cleopatra's voice across the centuries. But let's pause here for a moment. We've followed Cleopatra's journey through the winding paths of political maneuvering and love. But now let's take a closer look at the woman herself. What made her so compelling? Was it her beauty or something deeper? After all, it's easy to reduce Cleopatra to a figure of physical allure. Her image has been romanticized for centuries, with paintings, literature, and films all emphasizing her beauty. Yet, as we've already seen, Cleopatra was much more than just her appearance. Her true strength lay in her mind, her political acumen, and her ability to navigate the complex world around her. Cleopatra's beauty has often been depicted as her greatest weapon. She was said to have been a stunning woman who could captivate the attention of even the most powerful men. However, let's not forget that beauty in the ancient world encompassed more than just physical traits. It was about presence, about charisma, about the ability to make others feel drawn to you. Cleopatra's beauty, in the ancient world, was more about the way she commanded a room and made those around her feel as though they were part of something bigger. She wasn't just a woman to be admired from afar. She was a queen who demanded attention, who made people believe in her, and who made them feel like they were part of her vision, part of her story. And Cleopatra's beauty was not confined to her appearance alone. It extended to the way she dressed, the way she carried herself, and the way she spoke. Her clothing, her jewelry, and her carefully curated image were all part of the package. Cleopatra knew that how she presented herself to the world was a form of power, and she used this power with precision, crafting an image of herself as both a ruler and a goddess. She portrayed herself as the embodiment of the Egyptian goddess Isis, aligning herself with one of Egypt's most potent symbols. In doing so, she not only solidified her position as queen, but also linked herself to Egypt's divine past, reminding the people that she was not just a ruler but a representative of their ancient gods. Cleopatra's allure wasn't just in her beauty or her carefully constructed image. It was in her intelligence, her ability to engage with the world around her, and her capacity to make decisions that would shape Egypt's future. She was an astute ruler who understood the nuances of politics, and she utilized her intellect to navigate the complex relationships she had with Rome, her court, and the influential figures who sought to control Egypt. Her strategic mind and political acumen were truly admirable. Cleopatra was also a woman who understood the importance of image in the political world. Her ability to play the game of power was unparalleled. She leveraged her alliances, both with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, to strengthen her position, but she never lost sight of her ultimate goal, keeping Egypt independent and preserving its legacy. She knew that aligning herself with the right people was crucial, but she also knew when to break with them when their interests no longer aligned with hers. Cleopatra's resilience and adaptability in the face of changing political landscapes are one of the key reasons her reign was so significant. But it wasn't just her political alliances that defined Cleopatra. She could also outthink and outmaneuver her rivals. Take, for example, her famous meeting with Julius Caesar. When she first encountered Caesar in 48 BCE, Cleopatra found herself in a precarious situation. Her brother, Ptolemy XIII, had been trying to wrest control of the throne from her, and Egypt was in the midst of a civil war. Cleopatra was not one to be deterred by adversity. She knew that to survive, she needed to secure Caesar's support. So, she arranged a dramatic meeting, famously smuggling herself into Caesar's presence rolled up in a carpet. It was a move that not only showcased her cunning, but also demonstrated her understanding of how to make a lasting impression. Caesar was captivated, and their alliance would go on to shape the future of both Egypt and Rome. Her relationship with Caesar is often remembered as one of the greatest love affairs in history, but it was also a calculated political move. Cleopatra understood the importance of alliances, and she knew that aligning herself with Caesar, one of the most powerful men in the world, would ensure Egypt's place on the global stage. Their time together in Rome cemented Cleopatra's position as a political force to be reckoned with. She was not just Caesar's lover. She was his equal in many ways, a woman who held her own in a world dominated by men. Despite the political pragmatism behind her relationship with Caesar, it's impossible to ignore the personal element. Some argue that Cleopatra's relationship with Caesar was genuine, that despite the politics, there was a real bond between them. Whether it was love, mutual respect, or something else entirely, their connection transcended the political alliances of the time. After Caesar's assassination, Cleopatra quickly aligned herself with Mark Antony, another influential Roman figure. Her relationship with Antony, like her relationship with Caesar, was based on both personal affection and political necessity. But Cleopatra's political alliances were not just about romance. She was a ruler, and she understood that the survival of Egypt depended on her ability to navigate the turbulent waters of international politics. She used her relationships with Rome not only to maintain her power, but also to preserve Egypt's independence. It was a delicate balance, one that required both intelligence and diplomacy. Cleopatra knew how to play the game, and she played it better than anyone. As you sit by the Nile contemplating Cleopatra's story, it becomes clear that she was not just a ruler but a symbol of power. She embodied the power of Egypt itself, its past, its culture, and its people. She was both the queen and the goddess, the politician and the lover. Cleopatra's legacy is not just one of beauty or romance, but of resilience, intelligence, and the ability to adapt in a world that was constantly shifting beneath her feet. And as you close your eyes to the soft sounds of the Nile lapping against the shore, you realize that Cleopatra's story is far from over. Her name will forever be etched in the annals of history, her legacy continuing to inspire and intrigue us. The queen who once held Egypt in her hands and whose alliances shaped the fate of two of the most powerful empires in history remains a figure of fascination. Cleopatra, the woman who navigated the treacherous waters of power and love, will never be forgotten. As the Nile's quiet currents sweep past, you feel a subtle shift in the air, as if the whispers of Cleopatra's story are drawing you deeper into the mystery of her reign. Her tale spans the heights of ambition and the depths of human vulnerability. However, perhaps the most fascinating aspect of Cleopatra's life is the way she balanced the paradoxes of her existence. Her role as a powerful monarch and her identity as a woman caught in the tumultuous world of the ancient era. It is this interplay of strength and fragility that continues to captivate historians, scholars, and storytellers to this very day. Cleopatra's reign was marked by a profound and enduring connection to Egypt, yet she was also deeply entwined with the political and military machinations of Rome. It is easy to see her as merely the lover of Roman leaders, Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, but doing so would be an oversimplification of her actual influence. She was much more than a political pawn in the Roman Empire's expansion. Cleopatra was a queen who understood the value of alliances, but she also knew that partnerships could be fleeting. She was a shrewd negotiator, a woman who knew when to assert her strength and when to reveal her vulnerability. It is this ability to navigate the changing tides of power that makes her such an intriguing figure. Her relationship with Caesar was, in many ways, a perfect example of her diplomatic skill. She understood that to preserve Egypt's independence, she had to secure Rome's favor. But she did not simply rely on Caesar's love for her. Cleopatra, ever the strategist, used their relationship to further her own goals. She knew that the power of Rome could protect her throne and secure Egypt's borders. Their union was not merely romantic. It was political. It was an alliance forged out of necessity, a tool Cleopatra used to strengthen her position. However, as we know, Caesar's life was tragically cut short. His assassination in 44 BCE sent shockwaves through the Roman world, and Cleopatra, like many others, was left to pick up the pieces. Yet, instead of retreating into the shadows, Cleopatra once again proved her resilience. She turned to Mark Antony, another powerful Roman general, and forged a new alliance. Her relationship with Antony has often been portrayed as one of great passion, but like her previous union with Caesar, it was also born out of political necessity. Antony, too, needed allies to solidify his position in Rome, and Cleopatra, with her vast wealth and influence, was the perfect partner. Her resilience in the face of such monumental change is a testament to her strength and determination. Cleopatra's connection with Antony was not just political, it was deeply personal. There is a warmth and authenticity to their relationship that suggests genuine affection between the two. Unlike her more calculated alliance with Caesar, her bond with Antony appears to have been one of mutual respect and even love. Together, they fought for the future of their respective empires, but ultimately, their alliance was doomed by the rise of Octavian, Caesar's adopted son. The Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, a naval confrontation between the forces of Octavian and those of Antony and Cleopatra, was the decisive moment in their downfall. The defeat left Cleopatra and Antony cornered in Alexandria, where they faced the inevitable collapse of their political dream. As Cleopatra faced the fall of her empire, the once mighty queen of Egypt was confronted with the reality of Rome's relentless march toward domination. She could no longer rely on her charm and political alliances. Egypt's fate had already been sealed. The defeat at Actium marked the end of Cleopatra's hopes of a Roman-backed monarchy. She could not defeat Rome, and she could not bear to watch as Egypt became a mere province within the Roman Empire. It is in these final days, as Cleopatra prepared for the end, that we see her true strength. Historians still debate the circumstances of Cleopatra's death. The most famous account, as told by Plutarch, claims that she died by the bite of an asp, a poisonous snake associated with Egypt's royal family. But other theories suggest that Cleopatra may have chosen to poison herself, or that she died of natural causes. Whatever the actual reason, her death marked the end of an era. Egypt's independence was lost, and it would never again be the center of the Mediterranean world that it once was. But Cleopatra's legacy lived on. Her name would be immortalized in the annals of history, not as the lover of powerful men, but as a ruler who fought for her people and her land until the very end. As you sit by the Nile, reflecting on the life of Cleopatra, it's clear that her story is one of contradictions. She was a queen who held immense power, yet she was also a woman deeply vulnerable to the forces around her. She was a diplomat, a lover, a warrior, and a ruler. She defied the norms of her time, utilizing her intelligence, beauty, and political savvy to carve out a space for herself in a world dominated by men. Cleopatra's strategic acumen and political intelligence are truly admirable. She was no ordinary ruler. She was a queen who understood the complexities of power and who used every tool at her disposal to secure her place in history. In her death, Cleopatra became more than just a figure from the past. She became a symbol of strength, resilience, and the power of the feminine. Her name has transcended history, becoming synonymous with beauty, charm, and intellect. But what truly makes Cleopatra remarkable is not her beauty or her relationships with powerful men. It is her ability to shape the course of history. She was a woman who knew how to wield her power, navigate the political landscape, and shape history to her will. Her legacy is a powerful testament to the enduring strength and influence of women throughout history. As you close your eyes and let the soft sounds of the Nile lull you into a peaceful slumber, you realize that Cleopatra's story, like the river itself, will continue to flow through time. Her legacy will never fade, for she was more than just a queen. She was a symbol of power, of ambition, and of the unyielding will to survive. The last of the Ptolemies, the Queen of Egypt, lives on in the pages of history, her name forever etched in the sands of time. As the night deepens, the world around you begins to feel even more still, as if Cleopatra's spirit has settled into the very air you breathe. Her legacy lingers, like a faint but constant hum, reaching across the vast expanse of time to touch the present. Cleopatra was not simply a ruler. She was a woman who left an indelible mark on history. In the fading light of the evening, as you listen to the gentle lap of the Nile against the shore, her story seems to unfold again in the quiet space between sleep and wakefulness. Cleopatra's legacy is a curious thing. It is a legacy that transcends her death, leaving an imprint on both the political world and the cultural imagination. But how did Cleopatra, this queen of a fading empire, this woman who ruled in the shadow of Rome's growing power, become a symbol of strength and beauty? What was it about her that caused the world to fixate on her image for centuries, turning her into a figure of fascination, intrigue, and even myth? The answer, of course, lies in the way Cleopatra used the elements of her time to her advantage. She was a master of symbolism and a keen observer of her world. Her beauty, though often cited as the reason for her power, was never the sole factor. Cleopatra's strategic brilliance, combining her intellect, charm, and political acumen, made her not just a queen but a force to be reckoned with. Cleopatra's relationship with Julius Caesar is perhaps the most famous aspect of her reign. But, as we've discussed, it wasn't simply about love, it was a political move. Caesar, the most powerful man in the Roman world, was a man of action. He needed allies to solidify his position in Rome. Cleopatra, ever the tactician, was the perfect partner. Their union was an alliance that would shape the future of both Rome and Egypt, two great powers of the ancient world. It wasn't love at first sight for Caesar. His alliance with Cleopatra was a calculated decision, one that gave him a foothold in Egypt and a powerful ally in the East. However, Cleopatra's mastery extended beyond forming powerful alliances. She also understood the power of image and how to craft her persona to suit her needs. She was the living embodiment of Egypt's ancient gods. In adopting the persona of Isis, Cleopatra aligned herself with the divine, portraying herself as both the ruler of Egypt and the goddess who protected it. This fusion of sacred and royal authority was a powerful political tool, one that resonated with the Egyptian people and solidified her position as a ruler in a land where religion and politics were inextricably intertwined. However, Cleopatra was also a product of her time, and the era in which she ruled was marked by significant political instability. Egypt's Ptolemaic dynasty was in decline, its once mighty empire weakening under the pressure of Roman expansion. Cleopatra knew that to secure Egypt's future, she had to navigate the complex web of Roman politics skillfully. Her relationship with Caesar was just the first step in a long and complicated dance with the power of Rome. After Caesar's death, Cleopatra did not mourn her loss for long. She quickly aligned herself with Mark Antony, another prominent Roman leader. This time, however, her relationship with Antony was not just about securing Egypt's future. It was also personal. The two were deeply in love, and their bond would become one of the most legendary love stories in history. Together, they fought against the rising power of Octavian, Caesar's adopted son. But their efforts were doomed. The Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, A decisive naval conflict between Antony and Cleopatra's forces and Octavian's fleet sealed their fate. The loss at Actium marked the end of Cleopatra's dream of an independent Egypt. Her forces, defeated and in retreat, returned to Alexandria, where they confronted the harsh realities of their situation. Octavian's victory meant that Egypt was no longer an independent power. It was now part of the Roman Empire. Cleopatra, unwilling to live as a prisoner of Rome, chose to end her life rather than face the humiliation of being paraded through the streets of Rome as a captive. Her death, like her life, has been surrounded by myth. The popular story tells us that Cleopatra took her own life using the bite of an asp, a symbol of Egypt's royal power. But the truth is less specific. Some believe she may have poisoned herself, while others argue that she died of natural causes. Whatever the method, her death marked the final chapter in the history of Egypt's great civilization. Cleopatra's resilience in the face of defeat and her refusal to be a pawn in Rome's game are a testament to her strength and determination. But Cleopatra's death was not the end of her story. For centuries, she has been remembered as one of the most iconic women in history, a queen whose beauty, intelligence, and political acumen captivated the world. Her life has inspired countless works of literature, art, and film, ensuring that her legacy will never be forgotten. From Shakespeare's portrayal of her in Antony and Cleopatra to the modern fascination with her story, Cleopatra's influence on culture is undeniable. She remains a symbol of feminine power and resilience, a woman who shaped history with her intellect and determination. It is in her contradictions that Cleopatra's true legacy lies. She was a queen who understood the fragility of her position, and she navigated the turbulent waters of ancient politics with grace, intelligence, and cunning. Cleopatra was not just a woman of beauty and charm, but also a shrewd political strategist. She was a woman who was both a ruler and a lover, both a goddess and a political strategist. Cleopatra's beauty, while legendary, was only one part of her allure. It was her ability to command attention, to make the impossible seem possible, and to hold the fate of Egypt in her hands that made her one of the most remarkable figures in history. As you sit by the banks of the Nile, the soft sounds of the water guiding you into a peaceful slumber, you realize that Cleopatra's story, much like the river itself, will continue to flow through time. Her name, her legacy, and her impact on the world will forever echo in the hearts of those who seek to understand the complexity of power, love, and survival. Cleopatra's life may have been short, but her influence continues to shape the world we know today. Her story is not one of defeat, but of survival, of a woman who stood against the tides of time and left an indelible mark on history. As you drift into sleep, you feel the quiet reverberations of Cleopatra's reign, echoing softly in the night air. Her legacy, like the Nile, will continue to flow endlessly, eternally, in the quiet heart of history. The stillness of the night deepens, and the moon casts its gentle glow across the river, stretching shadows over the quiet landscape. Cleopatra's world, so full of drama, intrigue, and power, seems to slip farther away with every passing moment. Yet, her presence lingers, like the soft ripples of the Nile. She may have passed from this world centuries ago, but her legacy, etched into the pages of history, will never fade. Her name is immortal, tied to her beauty, her intellect, and her extraordinary ability to shape the course of her time. Cleopatra, a queen of unparalleled intellect, was more than just a ruler. Her reign was a testament to her ability to balance love, politics, and power, but it was her intelligence that truly set her apart. Many modern historians argue that her true genius lay not in her beauty, but in her capacity to understand and manipulate the intricate political landscape of the Mediterranean world. One of Cleopatra's most impressive qualities was her ability to use her intellect to her advantage. She was not only well-versed in the languages of her court, but she was also a student of philosophy, science, and literature. Her court in Alexandria was a hub of learning, drawing scholars from across the ancient world. Cleopatra's education allowed her to hold her own in the company of some of the greatest minds of the era. She was not just a ruler by her bloodline. She was a queen who understood the weight of knowledge and the power of intellectual engagement. Her ability to engage in philosophical discussions, coupled with her understanding of the political climate, helped Cleopatra navigate the complex alliances that would define her reign. Her relationship with Julius Caesar was rooted in more than just romance. It was an intelligent, calculated move that ultimately strengthened her position as queen. Caesar, the most powerful man in Rome, saw Cleopatra as an ally who could help him secure control of the eastern Mediterranean. For Cleopatra, aligning herself with Caesar was a strategic decision, one that allowed her to solidify her power in Egypt and ensure the kingdom's survival in an increasingly Roman-dominated world. But Cleopatra's relationships were not limited to the men she chose as allies. She also knew the importance of maintaining control over her people. Egypt, with its rich traditions and deeply rooted religious beliefs, was a land where kingship was not just a matter of political power. It was also a matter of divine mandate. Cleopatra, understanding this, associated herself with the goddess Isis, ensuring that she was seen not only as a ruler but as a holy figure. This connection to the gods was a key aspect of her appeal, solidifying her position as both the spiritual and political leader of Egypt. Her portrayal as a living goddess was a subtle but effective political move. It reminded the Egyptian people of their ancient heritage, of the gods who had ruled Egypt for centuries, and it reinforced Cleopatra's legitimacy as their ruler. As the last pharaoh of Egypt, Cleopatra was keenly aware of the need to maintain the traditions that had long defined her people. At the same time, she was not blind to the fact that her survival depended on aligning herself with the growing power of Rome. Cleopatra's relationship with Rome was never one of submission. She was not content to be a puppet of Roman power. Instead, she used her alliances with Roman leaders to preserve her kingdom's autonomy. Her relationship with Mark Antony was another key example of her political acumen. When Antony, one of Caesar's most trusted generals, sought Cleopatra's support, she saw an opportunity to further her ambitions. Together, they formed a powerful alliance, one that threatened the growing power of Octavian, Caesar's adopted son. The relationship between Cleopatra and Antony has been romanticized throughout history, but at its core, it was still a political alliance. Antony, like Caesar, recognized the value of aligning himself with Cleopatra, and Cleopatra, ever the pragmatist, understood that Antony's power could help secure Egypt's position in the Mediterranean. The two of them, together, sought to challenge Octavian's rising influence. However, while their relationship was one of deep affection, it also reflected the precarious nature of Cleopatra's position. She knew that her survival depended not just on her beauty, but on her ability to navigate the shifting political winds. Their alliance would not last, of course. The defeat at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE marked the end of their dreams of a united front against Octavian. The battle was a crushing blow, and in its aftermath, Cleopatra and Antony were left cornered in Alexandria. The power of Rome proved to be insurmountable. Cleopatra, ever the survivor, knew that her kingdom was lost. Her options were limited, and as the Roman forces closed in, she chose to take her own life, ending the reign of the Ptolemaic dynasty and Egypt's independence. But Cleopatra's death, though tragic, did not mark the end of her story. She remains one of the most iconic figures in history, a symbol of both feminine power and political strategy. Her life, filled with both triumphs and heartbreak, continues to captivate people to this day. Writers, artists, and filmmakers have all drawn inspiration from her story, each finding new layers of complexity in the woman who navigated the complexities of power, love, and survival. Her legacy, like the Nile's eternal flow, endures. Cleopatra's story has been told in countless ways, from the pages of history books to the stage of Shakespeare's plays. from Hollywood films to modern reinterpretations. She has become, in many ways, a symbol of empowerment, a woman who rose above the limitations of her time to become one of the most important figures in history. But it is her complexity as a ruler, her ability to blend intellect with charm and strategy with passion, that has made her story so enduring. As you continue to sit by the Nile, the waters gently lapping at the shore, you feel the weight of Cleopatra's legacy settle around you like the cool evening breeze. Her story, one of ambition, love, and loss, is not just a tale of ancient Egypt. It is a story that transcends time. Cleopatra, the queen who ruled Egypt at the crossroads of East and West, remains a timeless figure, her name forever linked to power, beauty, and intellect. And as you drift into the night, with the Nile flowing quietly beside you, you can almost feel Cleopatra's presence, a shadow from the past that continues to linger in the air. The Queen of Egypt, the woman who defied the odds and left her mark on the world, will live on in the hearts of those who seek to understand the complexities of power and survival. The stars above twinkle gently, the quiet pulse of the night a lullaby that pulls you deeper into Cleopatra's world. As the river's tranquil surface mirrors the heavens, Cleopatra's story continues to unfold in the soft embrace of history. Her reign, though brief, left a lasting imprint on the course of time, and it is impossible to walk away from her tale without feeling the pull of her genius. The weight of her power, intelligence, and extraordinary ability to navigate a world of shifting alliances and unpredictable forces cannot be overstated. Let's think for a moment about the immense pressure Cleopatra must have faced. Here was a queen at the helm of an ancient empire that was slowly being swallowed by the expanding forces of Rome. She inherited a fragile throne. Her kingdom teetered on the edge of collapse, yet she possessed the wit and resilience to carve out a space for Egypt in the world. Her contemporaries might have expected a monarch who held on, content with maintaining the status quo. But Cleopatra was never content to keep what was handed to her. She didn't settle for the faint remnants of Egypt's glory. No, Cleopatra sought to revive it, to make Egypt a force in the Mediterranean once more. And to do that, she would need to think and act with the sharpest of minds. What stands out in Cleopatra's reign is her incredible adaptability. Unlike many rulers of her time, she didn't simply rely on the strength of her armies or the wealth of her nation. Cleopatra understood that, in an increasingly Roman-dominated world, it was not enough to fight back with force. She had to fight with brains, with alliances, with charm. Cleopatra knew that her beauty, which had been so endlessly romanticized, was but one part of her arsenal. She could strategically position herself to work the politics of her time, which set her apart. Take, for instance, her decision to cross paths with Julius Caesar. Their meeting in 48 BCE, although often portrayed as a romantic and dramatic encounter, was also a masterful stroke of political maneuvering. Cleopatra, aware that Egypt's future rested on the support of Rome, knew that Caesar could be the key to maintaining her throne. But she did not merely rely on his goodwill. She seized the moment, charming Caesar with her intellect, her wit, and her forceful presence. She aligned herself with Caesar, using his strength to bolster her position in Egypt. This strategic alliance enabled her to reclaim her throne, defeating her brother and consolidating her power in Egypt. Cleopatra's brilliance was not only in securing alliances. It was also in knowing when and how to turn the tide of politics in her favor. The Roman world, with its complex web of power struggles, was not a forgiving place for those perceived as weak or ineffective. But Cleopatra was anything but weak. She saw Rome not as a distant empire to be feared, but as an empire to be befriended, used, and manipulated to her advantage. She was not intimidated by the strength of Rome. Instead, she learned how to use it to her benefit, forging powerful connections that would help her secure Egypt's place in the world. Her relationship with Mark Antony, another great Roman leader, is often remembered for its romance and tragedy, but it was also a shrewd political maneuver. Antony, at the time, was locked in a bitter struggle with Octavian, Caesar's heir. Cleopatra saw an opportunity to ally herself with Antony, strengthening her position and ensuring Egypt's survival. Together, they formed a formidable alliance, one that had the potential to shift the balance of power in the Mediterranean. Yet, as history would prove, their alliance could not withstand the rising power of Octavian. The Battle of Actium in 31 BCE marked the collapse of their dreams, and with it, the fall of Cleopatra's reign. Despite their defeat, Cleopatra's story did not end with her death. She became, for centuries, an enduring symbol of power and beauty, a queen who was not just a figure of legend but a real force in history. It's easy to forget that Cleopatra's reign was marked by constant battles, both physical and political, that she had to fight to preserve Egypt's independence. Her alliances, relationships, and decisions were all part of a delicate balancing act, one that demanded both intelligence and a profound understanding of the forces at play. Historians continue to debate Cleopatra's legacy, questioning whether her actions were driven by personal love or political necessity. Some see her as a tragic figure, caught in the whims of fate and the shifting tides of Roman power. Others argue that Cleopatra was a visionary, a woman who fought fiercely to keep Egypt free in an increasingly hostile world. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. Cleopatra's relationships were undoubtedly meaningful, but they were always part of a larger strategy. She may have been in love with Caesar and Antony, but she was also in love with Egypt, her people, her land, and her legacy. In the end, Cleopatra's death did not diminish her impact. It marked the end of Egypt's independence, but it also ensured that her story would live on. She became a legend, not just for her beauty or romantic entanglements, but for her intellect, resilience, and determination to fight for her kingdom. Even today, Cleopatra remains a symbol of feminine strength and power, a woman who defied the odds and shaped history with her vision, her intelligence, and her tenacity. As you sit by the banks of the Nile, contemplating Cleopatra's journey, it's clear that her legacy will never fade. She is not just a figure of ancient history. She is a symbol of survival, a woman who fought for her place in a world dominated by men and empires. Her story is one of resilience and adaptability, of love and politics, and of the unyielding will to shape her destiny. Cleopatra's legacy, like the river she once ruled beside, will continue to flow, endlessly and forever, in the hearts of those who remember her. The quiet night wraps around you like a soft embrace, the stories of Cleopatra's reign still lingering in the air. You drift further into the calm, knowing that the queen who once ruled the mighty Nile will always be a part of history's fabric. A queen whose story will be passed down through the generations, just like the river that carried her legacy. As the cool breeze from the Nile whispers gently through the night, the story of Cleopatra continues to flow, weaving through the ages. The Queen of Egypt, a woman whose name has become synonymous with beauty, intellect, and ambition, remains a figure who transcends time. Yet, the deeper we venture into her reign, the more it becomes clear that Cleopatra's legacy is not simply a tale of power or romance. It is a story of how one woman used everything at her disposal, her mind, her body, her political acumen, to carve out a place in history that would never be forgotten. Cleopatra's legacy is undoubtedly complicated. On the one hand, she is remembered as the lover of powerful men, Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, and their relationship is often the most talked about aspect of her life. Their love affair, fraught with political implications and personal drama, has captured the imaginations of countless historians, poets, and artists. But to reduce Cleopatra to nothing more than the lover of two significant Roman figures would be a grave misrepresentation of her character. Her true genius lay in her ability to play the political game at the highest level. Cleopatra was a queen of a dying dynasty, inheriting a kingdom that was already in decline. Her family, the Ptolemies, had ruled Egypt for centuries. Still, by the time of Cleopatra's reign, the once mighty empire had become weak, fractured, and was struggling to retain its independence in the face of Roman expansion. Egypt's fate hung in the balance, and it was Cleopatra's brilliant political mind that kept it from falling under Roman control too soon. At the heart of Cleopatra's reign was her ability to form and maintain powerful alliances. She understood that survival in a world dominated by Roman power was not about physical might. It was about strategy, relationships, and timing. Her relationship with Julius Caesar was one of the first examples of her political acumen. Cleopatra, aware of her fragile position, sought Caesar's support to solidify her rule. In return, Caesar saw in Cleopatra a powerful ally who could help him secure control of the East. Their alliance, while undoubtedly romantic, was first and foremost a calculated political move, one that allowed Cleopatra to secure her throne, defeat her brother, and restore Egypt to a position of power. Cleopatra's strategic thinking and foresight were truly impressive, shaping the course of history. However, Cleopatra's political acumen was not solely about utilizing men to achieve her objectives. She was a queen in her own right, with her ambitions and vision for Egypt's future. She was not merely Caesar's lover. She was a ruler in her own right, capable of making difficult decisions and taking bold actions to secure Egypt's independence. Her relationship with Caesar, although personal, was also a strategic alliance that enabled her to play a pivotal role in shaping the course of history. When Caesar was assassinated in 44 BCE, Cleopatra did not fall into despair once again. Instead, she turned to Mark Antony, a powerful Roman general who had become a prominent figure in the wake of Caesar's death. Antony, like Caesar, needed allies to secure his power, and Cleopatra, ever the tactician, saw another opportunity. She quickly aligned herself with Antony, forming a powerful alliance that once again threatened the balance of power in Rome. However, while their relationship was marked by passion and drama, it was also a strategic political move. Together, Cleopatra and Antony sought to challenge Octavian, the adopted son of Caesar, and reshape the power dynamics of Rome and Egypt. The relationship between Cleopatra and Antony, however, would ultimately prove to be their downfall. The Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, a decisive naval confrontation between Octavian's forces and the combined forces of Antony and Cleopatra, was the turning point. The defeat of their forces marked the end of Cleopatra's hopes of an independent Egypt and the beginning of the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty. Cleopatra and Antony, cornered in Alexandria, faced a grim future. In the end, Cleopatra chose to end her life, unwilling to be paraded through the streets of Rome as a captive. Her death, along with Antony's, marked the end of Egypt's independence and its absorption into the Roman Empire. It was a tragic end to a life of resilience and political brilliance, but Cleopatra's legacy did not die with her. Even in death, she became an enduring symbol of power, beauty, and resilience. Her image, carefully crafted during her reign, would be immortalized in literature, art, and popular culture for centuries to come. Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra immortalized their tragic love story, casting Cleopatra as both a political genius and a tragic heroine. In modern times, she has been portrayed in countless films, books, and works of art, each new interpretation adding another layer to her complex and multifaceted character. Cleopatra's influence on culture and history is a fascinating aspect of her legacy, one that continues to intrigue and inspire us today. Cleopatra's story is one of contradictions. She was a woman who wielded immense power, yet was constantly at the mercy of the political forces around her. She was a queen who had the world at her feet, yet she was also a woman who knew that her survival depended on her ability to navigate the treacherous waters of Roman politics. And yet, despite the challenges she faced, Cleopatra's story is ultimately one of triumph. She was a ruler who fought for her people and her kingdom, facing the impossible and overcoming it with grace, intelligence, and sheer determination. Her resilience in the face of adversity is an inspiration to us all. Her legacy is not just one of beauty or romantic allure. It is the story of a woman who understood the delicate balance of power and who used every tool at her disposal to secure her place in history. Cleopatra's beauty, though legendary, was just one facet of her character. What truly made her remarkable was her ability to survive and thrive in a world that was not built for women of her power. As you sit on the banks of the Nile, the soft breeze carrying the scent of ancient Egypt, you reflect on Cleopatra's enduring legacy. She may have been the last pharaoh of Egypt, but she will never be the last to capture the human imagination. Cleopatra's story continues to echo through the ages, a testament to the strength, resilience, and brilliance of a woman who shaped the world she ruled, and in doing so, shaped the world we live in today. Her story, like the river that flows beside you, will continue to move through time, winding its way through history. Cleopatra's name will never be forgotten, for she is not just a queen of Egypt, but a symbol of power, beauty, and intellect. As the night settles deeper, you feel the quiet pulse of history reverberating in the air, knowing that Cleopatra's legacy will endure for as long as stories are told and remembered. The cool, quiet breeze from the Nile carries a soft promise of time slipping gently by as the river flows endlessly, just as Cleopatra's legacy continues to flow through the fabric of history. As you sit by its bank, your mind drifts between the ancient world and the present, between the golden age of Egypt and the modern day, where Cleopatra remains an enduring symbol of power and elegance. And though centuries have passed, the enigma that was Cleopatra has never truly faded from the collective consciousness of the world. Cleopatra's story has been retold and reshaped countless times in art, literature, and film. Her name has become synonymous with beauty, seduction, and political intrigue. And while the tales of her relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony continue to capture the public imagination, they only tell part of her story. Her true legacy, however, is far more than the sum of her lovers or her captivating appearance. Cleopatra's true strength lay in her mastery of politics, her deftness in handling power, and her profound understanding of the complex and ever-shifting landscape of the ancient world. She was, at heart, a pragmatist, an intelligent and calculating ruler who understood that survival in a world dominated by Rome required more than military might or charisma. It required vision. Cleopatra was a queen who understood her kingdom, Egypt, as both a physical entity and a cultural symbol. She recognized the importance of both her Egyptian heritage and the demands of Rome's growing power. Her ability to navigate these sometimes conflicting forces, and to do so with unparalleled charm and grace, is what ultimately sets her apart. Egypt, in Cleopatra's time, was a land of incredible wealth and resources, but it was also a kingdom that had been steadily losing power. Cleopatra knew that if Egypt was to survive, it needed to retain its independence from the Roman Empire. But doing so was not easy. The power of Rome was undeniable, and the political climate of the Mediterranean was such that alliances were fleeting, power was fluid, and trust was often a dangerous game. But Cleopatra, wise beyond her years, saw the strategic value of forging relationships with Rome's most powerful men, not as an act of submission, but as a means of preserving Egypt's place in the world. Cleopatra's strategic brilliance shines in her alliance with Julius Caesar, the first and most famous of her relationships. By aligning herself with Caesar, she not only secured her position on Egypt's throne, but also solidified Egypt's place in the power structures of the Mediterranean world. This was not a relationship driven solely by love or lust, but a political alliance, forged out of necessity. Cleopatra's understanding that with Rome's backing, she could counter her internal rivals and safeguard Egypt from external threats was a testament to her political acumen. Caesar, in return, saw Cleopatra as a powerful ally in his quest for dominance in the East. The romantic element of their relationship, while famous, was secondary to their political collaboration. The two were able to combine their forces, with Cleopatra bringing her vast wealth and the resources of Egypt, while Caesar got his unmatched military power. Together, they faced Cleopatra's rivals, securing her throne and ensuring that Egypt remained independent, at least for a time. When Caesar was assassinated in 44 BCE, Cleopatra's grip on power was shaken. But Cleopatra was not a woman to be easily swayed by events beyond her control. She quickly turned to Mark Antony, a trusted general of Caesar's, with whom she formed another strategic alliance. Their relationship, though it would ultimately lead to their downfall, was also a marriage of minds. Antony, like Caesar, was a man with vast ambitions, and Cleopatra, ever the tactician, understood that her survival depended on aligning herself with someone who could challenge the growing influence of Caesar's heir, Octavian. It was not love alone that united Cleopatra and Antony, although their bond certainly carried emotional weight. They were two influential figures who could reshape the Mediterranean's political landscape. But their alliance, much like her previous one with Caesar, was political at its core. Cleopatra's understanding that to survive in the ever-changing world of Roman politics, she had to be flexible, able to adjust her strategies and alliances to meet the shifting tides of power, was a clear demonstration of her strategic thinking. Unfortunately, their alliance could not withstand the political realities of the time. The Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, in which Octavian's fleet decisively defeated their forces, marked the beginning of the end for Cleopatra and Antony. Despite this crushing defeat, Cleopatra's resilience shone through. Octavian's forces were more powerful, and the defeat at Actium sealed their fate. They were forced to retreat to Alexandria, where Cleopatra's final days played out in the shadow of Roman dominance. Cleopatra's death in 30 BCE marked the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty, the end of Egypt's independence, and the beginning of a new chapter for Rome. Egypt, as a political entity, will never again possess the same power it once had. But Cleopatra's legacy, like the Nile's eternal flow, endured. She was not forgotten. Her name lived on, not just as the lover of Roman generals, but as a queen who fought fiercely for her kingdom and whose intelligence, political savvy, and strategic thinking ensured her place in history. What makes Cleopatra's legacy so powerful is the way she navigated the complexities of her time. She was a queen in a world that did not always allow for female rulers. But she didn't shy away from power. She embraced it, wielding it with precision and intelligence. Her relationships with Caesar and Antony have often been romanticized, but they were far more than love stories. They were alliances, strategic moves made to protect and strengthen Egypt. And it is in this balance of intellect, strategy, and charisma that Cleopatra's true power lies. She was a ruler who knew how to play the game of politics, forge alliances, and utilize her beauty, intellect, and charm to secure her position in a world that was ever-changing. Cleopatra's strategic brilliance was not just a tool. It was a force to be reckoned with. She was not just a political pawn. She was a master of the game, a woman who understood the value of timing, the power of perception, and the importance of image. As you sit there by the Nile, contemplating the life of Cleopatra, you can almost feel the weight of her story, stretching across the centuries. Cleopatra is no mere figure of the past. She is a symbol of resilience, of a woman who fought for what she believed in, using her intellect and resources to survive in a world that was often beyond her control. And even though Egypt's independence came to an end with her death, her legacy remains. The queen who defied Rome, challenged the forces of empire, and used her mind and beauty to leave a lasting mark on history lives on. Her story continues to inspire and fascinate, transcending the borders of time and geography. Cleopatra is not just a figure of ancient Egypt. She is a universal symbol of power, intelligence, and resilience. A reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, one can rise, fight, and make history. The Nile has now become a quiet, still mirror to the stars, its ancient waters flowing ever onward, untouched by the passing centuries. The history of Cleopatra, though ancient, still whispers through time, a testament to the lasting power of one woman's will. As you sit by its banks, wrapped in the stillness of the night, it becomes clear that Cleopatra's legacy is as eternal as the river itself. Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, has lived on in history not only because of her beauty or her romances with Roman leaders, but because she embodied the complex intersection of intelligence, power, and cultural identity. A woman of great intellect, Cleopatra was not just a ruler in the traditional sense. She was an astute political strategist who understood the volatile forces of her time. Her political alliances were carefully crafted, her decisions calculated with the weight of her kingdom's survival in mind. Egypt may have been a kingdom in decline, but Cleopatra refused to surrender it to the inevitability of Roman dominance. Instead, she used the tools at her disposal, her charm, her mind, and her ability to read the shifting tides of power to ensure Egypt's place in the world. Her intelligence and strategic acumen are a source of admiration and inspiration for generations to come. Ultimately, her story is a bittersweet one, marked by triumphs and tragedies, as well as love and loss. Cleopatra's reign ended in defeat, her kingdom swallowed by the expanding Roman Empire. But even in death, Cleopatra left an indelible mark on history. Her name, her story, and the legend of her beauty and power have endured, inspiring generations of writers, artists, and historians. Cleopatra is remembered not just as a queen, but as a symbol of the resilience of a woman who refused to be defined by the circumstances of her time. She was a ruler who fought not just for power, but for the preservation of her people's identity, her culture, and her legacy. Her resilience in the face of overwhelming odds is a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure and overcome. As the Nile continues its eternal journey, Cleopatra's memory endures as well, like the river's current that shapes the land, steady and unyielding. The queen who once stood at the crossroads of East and West, whose name was spoken in the courts of Caesar and Antony, still carries with it the echoes of a past that shaped the future. Imagine the soft waves of the Nile lapping against the shore, their rhythm in perfect harmony with time. Cleopatra's life, though long gone, is still felt in the present moment. Her story remains one of resilience, beauty, and intellect, an embodiment of the complexity of human ambition and the capacity to navigate the ebb and flow of power. Her image may be distorted and romanticized in popular culture, but her true legacy lies in the profound impact she had on shaping the course of history. Cleopatra was not merely a beautiful woman or a lover of powerful men. She was a brilliant strategist, a woman who wielded her intellect and charm to shape the fate of an ancient kingdom and leave a legacy that would echo through the centuries. Now, as the night continues to unfold, you drift deeper into the quiet embrace of Cleopatra's world. The silent ripples of the Nile, the soft murmur of time passing, carry with them the essence of her reign. Cleopatra's story, with all its complexities, contradictions, and triumphs, is not one of mere survival. It is one of transformation, of reshaping the course of history. Her name, once a whisper in the wind of Egypt, has now become a resounding symbol that continues to reverberate. In every retelling of her story, in every portrayal of her life, Cleopatra remains both a queen and a symbol, a testament to the enduring strength of a woman who dared to dream, to love, to lead, and to change the course of history. And so, as you sit in the quiet of the night, the flickering stars above and the steady hum of the river beside you, you feel Cleopatra's presence, not as a figure of ancient history, but as a part of something greater, a part of the eternal current of time, one that continues to shape the world long after the events of her life have faded into the past. Her legacy, like the river, flows on soft, steady, and everlasting. It is a testament to the enduring power of one woman's will, a force that continues to shape the world long after her life has faded into the past. As the soft murmur of the Nile continues to flow, the quiet of the night wraps you in a calm embrace. Cleopatra's world, once filled with grand palaces and political intrigue, fades into the background, leaving behind only the gentle sounds of time passing. The ancient river, flowing steadily through the ages, mirrors the resilience of a queen whose story will never fade from memory. The beauty of Cleopatra's reign lies not in the grandeur of her power, but in the way she shaped her destiny with a fierce will and sharp mind. As you rest, the soft rhythm of the river reminds you that history, though distant, is never truly gone. Cleopatra's presence still lingers, woven into the fabric of the past, a thread that continues to weave through time. Her legacy, though marked by the trials and tribulations of her era, is a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit. She was a woman who refused to be confined by the limitations of her time, who used her intellect and determination to carve out a space for herself in the world. Now, As you close your eyes, imagine the calm ripple of the river flowing softly beside you, carrying Cleopatra's legacy into the depths of time. She may have walked the earth centuries ago, but her name, her story, and the quiet power of her reign remain with you, like a gentle whisper carried on the wind. The stillness of the night is a perfect reminder that time may pass, but the echoes of the past will always be present, softly guiding us through the present and into the future.